All right. So this is session 1 of the CAD classes. I'll hand it over to Bernard from here.
All right, so like Pierce said, we're team 4087. It is a FIRST Robotics competition team. FIRST Robotics is a organization that dedicated to competitions revolving around STEM and offering STEM opportunities for all students. So we are on the FRC level, which is the highest level. We are stationed in New Orleans, Louisiana, and we have been to the FRC World Championships 3 times now. Well, we have qualified 3 times. We've been twice, but and here we have a motto called "Be Inspired, Inspire Others," which is sort of the reason why we're doing this this class. We want to not only share what we learn with everyone to inspire others like we are inspired ourselves. So if go down really quick, wanted to know about a little bit about all of the attendees. Let's see. So if you just say your name, where you're from, and why you're here.
I guess I could go first.
Yep.
My name is Alexander Pelletier. I'm from Palm Harbor, Florida. And as soon as I saw this, it made me think back to when I was on Team 79 Crunch. And I thought it was just a really awesome thing to do.
You also have our, you notice that if you pay your attention to the chat, we have Amy. Amy's our team captain right now, so she's going to be sitting in on the on today's lesson.
Hi everyone.
There she is.
I'm from this team. I'm not that experienced in CAD, but I wanted to learn more and also just help facilitate these conversations. If you're not comfortable speaking, or I mean, you don't have to say anything. You can always just say something in the chat.
Don't feel pressured to speak out if you don't want to.
I'll go next if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Logan. I'm from Freeland, Michigan, and I love to design. And I love to design things. So I do have a little bit of experience in CAD, but it's like Tinkercad, so it's not most complicated CAD. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can go. My name is Cam. It's actually showing up as Kyle because this is my dad's laptop. But I'm looking to pursue a career in engineering, and I'm from Freeland, Michigan, like Logan, and I use Fusion quite often, but I'm looking to expand my experience in CAD.
Okay. Do you mind if I go next? Unmuted.
Well, I guess
we can hear you.
I can go next. I was in robotics team 6000 for Freeland, and I have experience in Fusion, but I want to expand my horizons like Cam did.
I'm from New Orleans. My name is Robert Clark, and I don't have any experience in CAD. Well, I had some in engineering school 20 years ago, but I've been wanting to get into 3D design, and was really excited to join this team.
Is there anyone who hasn't shared yet who would like to go ahead before we move on?
I'll go ahead. My name is Kim. I'm in New Hampshire. I am the coach for our VEX robotics team, and I also some classes related to design. So I just wanted to expand my capability on, especially an iPad-based design software.
Good.
My name is Franklin. I'm from Waterford, Michigan, and I have no experience in CAD, but hoping to do it for my FRC team the following year.
Okay. Has everyone gotten to go? Right, I think that might be everyone. So,
All right, if that's everyone, we will continue on with the presentation. So, like, what is CAD? CAD, CAD, stands for Computer Aided Design, and yeah, CAD is software. It's used for designing 3D models. So, like, say you're making a really big building, you probably want to like model it out in a 3D environment, so you can make sure, like, oh yeah, this actually works how it's supposed to first. And yeah, some of the benefits of 3D modeling include like complete understanding of like everything you're trying to make. And in addition, if you need to make a small modification sign, like say you have a like plate you're trying to make, and there's like this certain pattern of holes it needs to have, but you accidentally designed one of them like slightly smaller or slightly larger than it really needs to be, you could easily change it. And some more advanced software can run simulations to test like the strength of a part, display depth, like how much a part would move under load and like way more. And on the right here, you can see some examples. The robot on the top is the 4087 robot from last year, Infinite Recharge. And then on the bottom is a ring someone on our team made. And yeah, with enough practice, anyone can make wacky and uncharacteristic shapes and complicated stuff like that. So then, like the skyscraper example I used earlier, yeah, there's many different industries that CAD is used in. Like there's some more obvious ones like cars, like, oh, how are we going to fit X part in Y place, all the way to like graphics design and even game making. But yeah, it's primarily used in engineering, and that's going to be the primary focus of this class. We won't be going over the more like digital design oriented CAD. Sorry. Yeah, so like I was saying, we'll be going over CAD for engineering purposes. In this case, we will be using Onshape because it's free and online and still has pretty much everything you would need. But then the usages of CAD, like, yeah, you could visualize the design before you actually put it together using physical things. So it saves lots of time, lots of resources. Instead of just trying to like, oh, I think this would go here. I have to build the entire thing before I actually know for certain. You can just design it online. It's like, oh, yeah, that doesn't go there because this other thing is in the way. And mistakes like that, yeah, they cost time and resources. So using CAD, you can prevent situations like that. And yeah, it also prevents mistakes with like trying to put a part in a certain place. So say you're trying to make a robot has to have all of these different subsystems, and say your like intake system um, has to share space with some other system, let's say drive. We want to make sure that the two systems can be built separately so they can be built at the same time, which saves time later on. And then they actually go together perfectly when built separately, which is kind of hard to do if you're just like, oh, I think this goes here. And yeah, so next is introduction to CAD. I'll be turning it back over to Bernard.
Yep. All right. So, like Pierce mentioned, we're mainly going to be working with Onshape, but if you do decide to, keep moving on with CAD after these classes, which I'm sure you will, there are multiple different there's multiple different CAD softwares that you can use. Onshape is a really good one. It's cloud-based and has a free and premium plan. If you need, so the free version will offer practically everything you should need, but the premium does have some perks. SolidWorks is a local-based cloud option. It's much more in-depth than Onshape, I'd say. That's why it's a little bit more professional if you wanted to go that route. Then there's for beginners, there's Tinkercad, AutoCAD, LDD. All those are sort of much easier to grasp and understand. Then there's Fusion 360, which is cloud-based and integrated. So much like Google Docs. Yep.
All right, so it's probably about time we got started with the actual lessons themselves. So yeah, how these classes will work. We'll provide some objectives for the class and we'll give the lesson, which will probably take up most of the class. Then at the end of the class, there will be a Q&A and a quiz. And then once that's done, we'll provide some nice, fun practice activities for everyone. Who doesn't love those, you know? So there's a couple links. Hold on a second, let me copy these. So this is the resource and practice activity document. I recommend that you save this somewhere. You're probably gonna wanna check on it later. And then here's an information document about the class. Coming second after that, there's 2 links there. And let's go on.
All right, so we have our objectives for today. We first want to get you guys on Onshape. So starting off with your own account. Then we want you to learn how to navigate through Onshape itself, the locations of key functions, so we can start working on sketching. Won't quite be moving into 3D shapes yet, but sketches lay the foundation for everything. All the designs will be building off from here. All right. So does anyone have any questions before we move on?
I do have a quick question. Does it matter if we're following along with the desktop version or like the tablet iPad version?
I don't think it would make too much of a difference.
Okay.
I don't know if we will quite make it into sketching. That's our hope for today. I do know that it would be sketching itself is much easier on desktop.
Okay. Thank you.
It would also probably be easier if you had a mouse pad, but that's not really a requirement. Like when I first started learning CAD, I did it off of a Chromebook, and although my Chromebook was slow and everything, stuff still worked.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I highly recommend using a mouse that has 3 buttons. So like your standard left click, right click, and scroll wheel. Just makes it easier sometimes, you know. So, in chat, preferably, is there anyone who does not already have an Onshape account? Anyone? All right, so it sounds like everyone has an account. Is that correct? I think that's correct. Okay, that's good. That's good. It saves us about a while, I think. Wrong window. So, Onshape, it's a wonderful program, you know? Okay. Bernard.
Okay. Let me just get things set up here.
Did anyone have any trouble logging into their Onshape account? I know for some people, it automatically sent to spam.
Not me.
Just running into a few technical difficulties with Zoom. Okay, so okay, so we're just going to be going off of Pierce's screen. So, given you have Onshape open right now, this would be the first screen you're presented with. So where should we start, Pierce?
I guess let's first start by making sure everyone is under the Teams section because
Yes.
yeah, forgot to tell everyone's. Hold on a second. Apparently, I lost connection. Which account did I use? That one. Okay. Here we go. So, usually when you sign in, you'll see just everything you've made. But since we're going to be doing stuff under a team, you have to go down. I'm not listed under teams. That's a problem.
You should need to be added.
Hey, oh wait.
I can add you at the moment. Just interesting. Okay, you should be on right now. Should be fixed.
All right. So,
All right. So starting underneath the 4087 virtual, the class folder, this will show you this screen where you should be at right now. Well, where Pierce is right now will show you all of your documents and folders. You have the name of said file or folder. You can see the modification history of each file, who was last on it, and who is the owner of each file. And then even further right, you would see the detail. So you will be provided with an image of said file, or if it's a folder, the top file in that folder. Just above it, you have the share function, delete, and then you can alter the view between list and display. On the left, we have the My Onshape, which would just be all of your private documents. So anything that you work on your own that you don't have within the folder will appear right there. You have a timeline of all the documents you've opened, another timeline of all the documents you've created, and a timeline of all the documents that have been shared with you. Then you have the teams that you have been added to. And then there's the public feature, which when we eventually get to putting together separate designs into one single document, you can take CAD files from a public space. So then we have the create. You can create either a document or a folder. If you've created CAD files or have them saved somewhere else, you can import them from, say you, on a different CAD software, you created a CAD file, but you want to work on it on Onshape. You can import from a service a direct service or just import directly from your computer. Let's see what else. You have a search bar at the top to search for specific documents. Then there's the Learning Center, which, can you open that up, Pierce? I don't know. Of course, we'll be going, we're hosting the class, but the Learning Center also provides extra classes in case there's ever anything you had issues with outside of class. There's help learning how to do specific things. And then essentially it's just extra help. All right, I think that's it for this page.
Oh yeah, and then one more thing I want to share. You can also go into my account, and then in preferences, you can change like what units you want. You can change the way you like manipulate your view. For example, by default, it's on the Onshape settings. So to rotate the model, you would drag your right mouse button and like stuff like that. Personally, since I'm a little more used to SolidWorks, I just use the SolidWorks view settings. If I say something and it doesn't work, it's probably because I said middle mouse instead of right mouse or something like that. So yeah, just keep that in mind. There's also just a couple other tools. You might want to like check most of these out on your own. There's probably a couple things you might want, a couple other stuff there. Yeah, so now we're going to dive into the key functions of Onshape.
Before we move on, I had one quick question. Was there anyone else? Oh, never mind. Amy took care of it.
All right.
Okay, I was just going to ask if there was anyone who was still not added to the team. Be sure to check your spam folder and your email. And if that's not the case still, then just let us know. We'll get you added. All right, but now we can move on to key functions if everyone is good.
Right, so assuming everyone has gotten an Onshape account and is signed in, I'm going to create a document. It'll ask me for a name. I am going to call this example document. Create public document. Since I'm using a free account, I don't get a choice, it has to be free or public. So this is the Onshape editor. Everything you do to your model will be done in here. By default, it puts you into Part Studio 1. You may notice there is also a tab at the bottom called Assembly 1. We will be getting to that in a later session that probably won't be today. I hope we aren't that pressed for content that we need to go like 3 sessions ahead anyway. So anyway, you'll notice that you can like drag the view around. You see the top plane, the front plane, the right plane. At the top right, you'll notice there's a cube. This cube corresponds to the like model and these planes. If you click on the front face of the cube, it will take you to the or it will put your view perpendicular to the front plane. Then there's also the corners of the cube. You can press those to get a trimetric view of the cube. Same for right and top. I can click it. And then you may think, well, what about the corners? Well, if you, or edges, not corners, if you click on an edge, it will take you to the opposite side. So now it says front backwards, and I am looking at the back of the cube. Sorry about that. You may also notice there's a couple different options here. So for example, if you click the option box right by the cube, you'll see there is an option for isometric. This will take you to a view where like one unit this way is the same as one unit this way or this way. It also looks kind of strange at times. It can lead to some fun optical illusions. Then there's also the dimetric view, where the x and y axes correspond perfectly to each other. However, the z-axis is slightly off, as you can see by this. And then there's the original view we're at, which is trimetric. It's a pretty good way to get an overview of a part. It's also what clicking on a corner will take you to. There's also some other stuff, like you can turn on perspective. By default, the editor is in a mode called orthographic view. This means that like no matter how far away something is, or if it's like offset, it'll still be the same size. So for example, normally if you're looking at, say, a super tall building, the base of the building, yeah, that's pretty big, you're pretty close, you can see it fairly well. When you look up at the top, the top looks a lot smaller because it's far away. Orthographic view makes it the exact same size. This might be a little weird when you first start using Onshape, but as you start using it more, it'll just feel natural. However, since I'm in orthographic view, I could show that, yes, this line and this line are the same length. I turn perspective view on, suddenly, yeah, this looks more like the normal 3D you'd probably be used to. And these lines, they're different lengths. Turn perspective off, they're the same length. So that might have been a slightly confusing example, but hopefully you can see what I meant by that. So next we'll be just going over all the tools we have. Probably the tool you'll be using the most is the sketch tool in the top left. It's used for creating drawings, which can be used for making pretty much any part you want to make. The next tool you'll probably be using a lot is the extrude tool. The hotkey for this is Shift E, and actually the hotkey for the new sketch tool is Shift S. Those will probably be the tools you use the most. We'll be going over most of the like 3D tools, which are what you see here in later lessons. However, should we make, no, you don't need to make your own document now. I'm just trying to show like roughly like where everything is, so you like know where to look when you start to make your own. if you want, you can start to make your own once we get to sketches. However, we're not quite there yet. I'll tell you when we do get there.
Pierce, I noticed you were talking about some of the keyboard shortcuts. Would you like me to post the document for that now?
Yes, I would. It'd be very nice. Thank you. All right. So on that link that Bernard just sent in chat, there is a whole list of shortcuts that can be used in Onshape. Actually gonna pull this over here since I already had it open. And yeah, maybe like, that's a lot of shortcuts. How will I ever remember all of these? Thankfully, you don't have to, or some of them you probably already know. For example, there's like the standard copy paste, although I don't think that's actually used too much. And then there's a couple others like Shift S for sketch that you'll just be using so much that like, yeah, you don't even have to click the button. Of course, that's what that one is. Then corner, rectangle, center point, rectangle. Or well, yeah, so like line, center point, rectangle, center point, circle, fill it, a bunch of tools like that. The button for them is just the same as the first letter in their name. So like R for rectangle, C for circle, L for line. It's relatively simple. So I guess I'll go into the sketch stuff, or I'll start showing sketch stuff. You don't have to start creating your own sketch yet. But so anyway, I am going to create a sketch on the right plane, and the significance of each plane is to show like, oh, so the front plane, this is the front of whatever. Oh, I created it on the front plane, so I clicked by accident. But the front plane, like this is the front of whatever you're trying to make. The right plane, this is like the right side of whatever you're trying to make. So like, obviously, if you're looking at it from the left side, it's be the left side. The top is the top of whatever you're trying to make. But in this case, since I clicked on front by accident instead of right, we'll be making our sketch on the front plane. So to easily, that's the wrong, drag this over here, okay. So to easily navigate, so your view is perpendicular to whichever plane you want. You could just try to like, oh, that looks about right, but you can still see that the other planes, it's not perfect, and then it's like slightly rotated to the right slightly because I didn't drag the view properly. So the best way to do it, or the easiest way, is probably view normal to sketch plane, which will just take you like to a perpendicular view. Or if you click on the cube in the top right, you can click the front side and it'll just take you right to the front of the cube. So we have our sketch like laid out, but there's so many tools. How do I know which one I want to use? I'll start by saying you probably don't want to use the extrude or revolve tools yet. Those are used for creating 3D shapes. They're not necessarily something you would need for a sketch. Or, well, you'll probably use them on your sketch, but they don't like Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So anyway, there's a couple tools you'll probably be using quite a bit. They're the line tool, the rectangle tool. Personally, I find that the center point rectangle is actually slightly more useful than the corner rectangle. So I just usually leave that one selected. There's also the center point circle. You can also create a 3-point circle or an ellipse. More useful tools, a 3-point arc, a tangent arc, a center point arc, a conic. There's also two different polygons, one with a circle inside it, one with a circle outside it. There's splines, which are just smooth lines that are weird. We probably won't be using those too much because they're kind of complicated. A point, that's fairly useful. And all the way, and by the way, all these have shortcuts I should probably be saying. So for line, the shortcut is L. Like now I have the line selected, so I can just draw a line. For a corner rectangle, the shortcut is G. You can see it automatically changes it to corner rectangle. Start at one corner, drag to the next corner. That's my corner rectangle. Then if I want to create a center point rectangle, which I feel like these are a little more useful, you'll probably see why in just a second. I press R, you see it automatically changes it to a center point rectangle. I click at the center of where I want the rectangle to be, just drag it out from there. You could pretty easily create whatever rectangle you want. So then next we have center point circle. You could press C for that. It automatically selects the center point circle, and to make a center point circle, much like a center point rectangle, you click at the center of where you want it to be and you drag out from there. Then there's also a 3-point circle, which you can, or 3-point arc, which you can select by pressing A. As you can see, it has now selected the 3-point arc. So let's see, I'll put 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point here, I guess. Here, yeah. Look at that nice little arc. And yeah, you can get there by pressing A. There, then probably the next most important tool, because like sure you can draw like any design you want. Let's do that. Okay, so we have a semicircle and a circle, but there's these lines here. What if I don't want them? We could use the trim tool. You can press M for that, selects the trim tool, and you just kind of, nope, I don't want you, I don't want you, I don't want you. And now it's all one continuous shape. This can make designs pretty, or yeah, it can make designs a lot easier to understand. So instead of having like 20 different lines just going everywhere, you can't tell what's what. It's just one big shape, very easy to understand. And then it also helps when you're actually going to extrude, because you don't have to select each individual area, which could get kind of complex if you have some really tiny areas. So then another extremely important tool that, so let's get rid of all this. So say I am trying to draw like a rectangle of a certain size. Well, I could just like try and draw it to the right size. So Okay, let's put that there. Yeah, it looks about right. But like, this isn't exact. This isn't precise. I don't know exactly what I've told the computer the size is. So to make sure it's the exact size I want it to be, I can use the dimension tool. You can access this tool with D, and it lets you set a dimension for any part you want. So for this, like, for how wide the rectangle is, I can set it to, let's go with 1.5 inches. That sounds good, right? So now, as you can see, these lines have turned black. That means that they can't move anymore. So if I turn off the dimension tool, I can't move those lines side to side. It's stuck at 1.5 inches wide. I can also do this for the height. Let's with 2 inches. And now, yeah, I can't move any part of this at all. This is a fully defined sketch. All right, where are we in time?
Try with a circle showing the.
Yeah, I guess it's mess around with like rectangles and circles now. So let's start with circles. So sorry about that. So I want to make a pipe for, let's say, I want to, okay, so I have a pipe, and I want to make sure it has a certain like cross section or like a certain dimension I want. So how do I design a circle with like a hole in it? Because as you can see, the like standard circle, it's just a circle. This could be a like a solid stick of something. It could be anything. Well, first of all, I'll create my circle. It's like, okay, how large do I want this to be? Let's make it fairly large. Let's go with 4 inches. It'll automatically resize it to 4 inches. So okay, we have this now. Now, how large do I want the inside diameter of the pipe to be? Well, there's the distance, there's the actual diameter of the circle. We could define that. So I could put it as like 3.5 inches, have some pretty thick 1/4 inch walls. Or alternatively, since here I have to like manually do some guesswork, like, oh, the outside's 4 inches. If I want walls like a certain thickness, I should make them like, or the inner diameter has to be this wide. So instead of doing that, we can actually dimension from the circles to each other, and it gives us super easy to see, like, oh, from like here to here, we can make it, let's go with a 1/16 of an inch. And by the way, Onshape does accept math when you're trying to set a dimension, which is super helpful, because if you have like a bunch of like numbers and you don't want to like add or subtract them or whatever you need to do, but the part has to be like that long, you can very easily set like, oh, this is 4 inches plus 3 5/8 plus 4 and 3/16, and it'll just automatically add everything, and just, yeah, it works. So say I want to set that to 1/16. You can see that now it is at, get out of here, at 0.0625 inches, although I have mine set to round a bit before that. I think that's actually how it's set by default. So yeah, I have a 4-inch pipe with 16-inch walls. Maybe I can find some use for that. I don't know. If I need it for some project I'm doing, yeah, there it is. But say I don't need that, I'll just delete all this. I want a rectangle. I want a piece of aluminum stock that's like 1 inches by 2 inches wide and has a 16-inch thick wall. And yeah, like I was showing earlier, you can just try to guesstimate, like, oh, it should be about this big, but that's annoying. Let's just draw it this big for now, and then we can use the dimension tool to scale it down. So the height, well, how tall do I want it to be? I want it to be 1 inches by 2 inches. The way I've drawn this, it seems that I want the 1-inch side to be the height side, so I'll put 1 here. And as you can see, Onshape automatically scales it down. However, since it doesn't know exactly what you want to do, it doesn't scale the top side, or it doesn't define the top side. So since I didn't quite draw it as a perfect 1 to 2 rectangle, it's slightly off. So as you can see, it's a good thing. I'll now set this to be a 2-inch wide rectangle. It's okay, we have our rectangle, but now we have to do the same thing for the pipe, where we want to create the walls inside it. So it's just like a weird thing like that to make it a little easier to click on. So there's the, so first we want to do the height. Yeah, we could just go like, oh, I want it to be 1 inch minus 2/16, because I want 16-inch walls. So yeah, sure, you could do that, and it'll put the height at 1/16 from each wall. But that's like difficult. It doesn't look nice. It's a little harder to understand. Instead, we can like actually just set the wall thickness straight out. Let's go here. Okay, this is a 16th of an inch. We can do the same for here. Set this to 1/16 and done. So now we have this piece of aluminum stock. We can use it for pretty much anything we need, which is pretty helpful. What else do we need to do? Oh, I'm a little late, but someone asked, can you move a sketch after it is placed? And the answer to that is yes, sometimes. This is actually something I think I forgot to mention, kind of. It can be a little annoying when you're trying to make a super complex drawing, but most of the time it's actually fairly useful. So if I want to draw a rectangle at the center, I'm like, okay, this is my rectangle. Let's make it 3 inches by 2 inches. Okay, so this is my rectangle. As you can see, all the lines are black, and if I like click on the line and try and drag it, I can't move it. It just automatically goes to the select thing. This is because of something called inferred constraints. So for example, if you are trying to create a center point rectangle and you create it from the small dot at the center called the origin, it will assume that you want this rectangle to be permanently affixed to the center, which for most uses is probably what you want, but sometimes you might have like clicked it there by accident, but you actually want it somewhere else. I'll probably try to go into this in more depth next lesson, unless we need more time this lesson, which I hope we don't. But there's these things called constraints. If you like mouse over a point, or in this case, the center point of the rectangle, you can see the constraints it has on it. In this case, there's the coincident constraint. This is the one that's preventing us from moving the rectangle. We are going to want to delete this, and suddenly, look, the entire thing is blue, even though we've already defined the exact like shape and size we want. So now we can like move this. Let's put it over here. Come on, yeah, there we go. And say we want this to be like here. We want it to, let's draw a line from the origin to here. We want it to be 1 inch away from the origin, and we want it to be, there we go, at a 45-degree angle. So this will move the center point of the rectangle 1 inch away from the origin and put it 45 degrees off. However, once I've done that, I can no longer move anything. So it's stuck there now. Let's see, someone asked, for that rectangle, how would you cut out the center? Can you please explain what you mean by cut out the center? With Kyle. No response, or oh wait, cut out the center. You probably mean like remove the actually.
I was typing up, then I realized I could unmute. I was talking about for the previous rectangle, you had 2 rectangles inside of it, kind of making it more like a pipe. And I was wondering if there's a way that you could take out the center so that way when you extrude it, it's not there.
So usually, okay, so first I will reface this with, that's a very good question. It's one that I was probably going to, no, I'll be honest, I was probably going to explain or forget to explain that. Um, but yeah, so usually in Onshape, or I think most like modern engineering CAD software, when you're extruding something, it's pretty smart about like what parts of the drawing to extrude. Um, so this is going a bit beyond where we want to be today. But if I go to extrude like these two circles I just drew, as you can see, it's like, oh, circle inside a circle. That probably means the outer circle is the one you want, and the circle inside is probably what you want to be cut out. But if you don't, but if it's wrong and you want to like, oh, maybe I did want that circle inside there. I can click on the drawing where the circle would be, and it will add the circle back in. That's a little more advanced. Not exactly what I was hoping to cover today, but yeah, since I was probably going to forget to mention that next time, thank you. That was a very good question.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
All right, so what should we work on next? About half hour left or so. Yeah, so I guess now let's just try to show like, oh, here are some good like example uses for each tool. Let's start with the center point rectangle. So let's design a castle, because castles are cool, you know? We're gonna start with like the base of the castle kind of, but then like what's a good castle without some towers? Sure, we could say, oh, the center of the tower is gonna be here, we're gonna just drag that down to there, but that doesn't leave a very like precise tower. You don't have as much control over the tower. So instead, we're going to try to use a corner rectangle for that. So from this point here, we could just drag up like, oh, I want tower to be here. That's a pretty nice tower. Yeah, same over here. And I think I started to explain inferred constraints earlier. So you may notice there's a dashed line that goes across my screen from the top of one tower to the top of the next tower. That line means that these towers are, or the tops of the towers are going to be at the same height. I think it does, right? Yeah. So like, if I decide I don't like the height of one tower, I can just drag it up and the other tower goes too. This kind of thing's very helpful when you're trying to make a drawing with like a bunch of like parts that all have to be the same length, but you don't know exactly how long yet until you're done drawing. So you can just go like, oh, that should be there. I can just quickly drag it, or change one dimension. Let's make this like 0.5 inches. Oh, I should probably dimension, get rid of that. So I should probably dimension this first. We are going to make this go 3 inches wide. Oh, and also something else I forgot to mention. If you want to set like the height of something, or just like a distance between two lines, instead of how long like a singular line is supposed to be, you just click on one line, then the next, and now look, I can change the height of this like rectangle here without trying to figure out which of these lines is the right one I want. I can just go, okay, we're gonna set this to 1.5 inches. And I guess for good measure, we'll set these to 1 inch. I have to do it for the other one, I forgot. So yeah, now I want this to be this tall. Let's see, how tall is this? This is about 1 inch tall. Let's go with that. But hey, that's too tall. Maybe I don't like my towers to be that tall. I can actually change the dimension by double clicking on the number. Maybe I want it to be half an inch tall. And now they're both half an inch tall, as you might expect. So next, oh, I want some domes on my towers. That sounds pretty nice. Let's go with a circle for that. Circles are a little easier to understand. And then, yes, center point circle. So in Onshape, most lines, like at the very center of the line, will have a center point where if you're trying to like make something else going off of that line, you can just find the center of the line. Then you might notice there's a small little box around the line. That means I am going to create whatever feature I'm trying to make at the center point of that line. So since I'm making a center point circle, I just click there, and then I click on one of the other sides of the towers, and now my circle is the exact same diameter as the tower is wide. So since the tower is 1 inch wide, I can check the dimension of this, and look, it is 1 inch wide. Now a grayed out measurement like this means that that's already defined somewhere else. So here, since they're both the same measurement, it's no big deal. This one's just grayed out. It just shows like, oh yeah, that's 1 inch wide, but it's already been defined somewhere else. However, that does mean if I change this, let's say I want it to actually be 0.75 inches. Oh, okay, I'll be honest, I've actually never done that in Onshape. I'm more used to SolidWorks, where it just completely freaks out if you do anything like that. But yeah, so it looks like Onshape's pretty smart about it. Like, oh, this is 0.75 inches. I'll change this. This will also be 0.75 inches. I can just, how many times I move that? Undo that to put it back to 1 inch. And then, yeah, I can do the same thing on the other side. We already know it's the right size. And yes, like that would be a good point to use, like, oh, a center point rectangle for creating a rectangle of just like whatever size I want. But then it's not as convenient if I'm trying to create a rectangle in a different place. Like, oh yeah, I want this to be here instead of there. So now, since there's a bunch of these lines, it's like, oh yeah, maybe I don't want those lines. They're kind of distracting. There's no point to have them. I can now use the trim tool wherever it went. And I can just kind of, there we go. That line's gone, although, wait a second. Yeah. Sometimes the trim tool is not perfect. Like if you click on one thing, sometimes it'll undefine something else, even though, yeah, so we got rid of the like, what is it? Oh, that's that, okay. Yeah, so now we got rid of the line between this point and this point. And now this circle is not properly defined. It's probably position or something, but we don't exactly know. How can we find out? So if it's blue, it means that like some aspect of the circle can be moved. This is still grayed out, so it doesn't No, never mind. I guess that's false. Yeah, so in this case, it seems that our circle isn't the same width as this anymore. Um, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure why. Sometimes Onshape just is like that. It's a kind of temperamental creature. But in our case, we can redefine it as 1 inch. It's fine again. If I had started this dimension at the top, it's possible we wouldn't have had that problem, but I don't know, because we didn't. Actually, if I tried over here, yeah, right there, but 1 inch. So now we go to trim the other side because I don't want that either. Yeah, that was right. So see, this is still perfectly defined. Yeah, sometimes if you're using the trim tool to like slightly change part of a drawing, you might run into issues like that where it should make sense, but it doesn't, or like it's already defined, but since you had defined it somewhere else first, the dimension you made got grayed out, and it's just like, oh, this isn't a dimension. This is just telling you like what it is. It's not actually like forcing it to be like however long. But then now I want to get rid of, say, these curves here because they're ugly. It's not much. Oh, yeah, this is what I mean by sometimes it's a little temperamental. We're gonna do. All right, let's put that back there. So there's no probs here, right? We're gonna get rid of this. Yeah. It looks like the major difference between each side of this is over here. I defined it to be 1 inch wide at the top. That meant that when the bottom half of this circle is gone, there's no issues there. Here I defined it at the bottom. So I guess I have to fix that. That or it's with this dimension, but I'm not sure. Again, SolidWorks could be super temperamental. So let's put this dimension up here just to make it easier. I'm actually going to define it between those two lines. Yeah, so that's fixed. Let's get rid of this curve, and it's still broken. Why is it still broken? Well, it's not causing problems over here anymore. That's a good thing. Put that back there. Get rid of this. Let's try this now. Nope, still does not work. Yeah, so sometimes you'll run into problems like this. It can be kind of hard to figure out why something's working or why something doesn't work. Like I'm pretty sure I have had some times where like I'm pretty sure I have had some times where like so something's defined, but I don't know why it's defined. It shouldn't be defined. It's not defined how I want it to be defined. That doesn't make sense. So you'll have to go into like the constraints and stuff. It's like, this is this, which can get kind of complex. Yeah. I'll probably try to explain that later. I was hoping next lesson. But yeah, so sometimes you'll just have some issues like that. And there's not always a need to make something, actually in this case there is because it's a proper circle. But yeah, so sometimes say I want there to be a circle or like the bottom half of a circle. Let's go with a tangent arc. No, a center point arc. These are easier. So I want to have the bottom half of the circle here. Okay, so we have our circle and it's split into two halves now, but like, yeah, I don't want this part here to be like the like normal, like, oh yeah, make sure to extrude this. I want it to only be used for construction, so I can put, like, let's say, another rectangle at the bottom of it that's like a certain dimension. Make it easier. So let's put this 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. So our tower is going to have a window on it. However, yeah, I don't want this circle, or the bottom half of this circle, to be an actual circle. I want it to just kind of be there, but not be there. This is where construction lines come in. A construction line is used for when you're trying to create a drawing, but you don't want that line to actually be put into whatever you're trying to use that drawing for. So if I'm trying to make a, like, or like, so if I'm drawing out a bunch of holes that are going to go onto a piece of aluminum, and I want all the holes to be on one line, but I don't actually need that line to be in the aluminum itself. I could just go up here and turn it into a construction line, and yeah, that gets ignored, or, well, mostly ignored when you're trying to create an extrusion or a hole or something like that. So in this case, I can press Q, and it's dashed now. That shows that it is a construction line. And as you can see, one key difference between the left over here and the right is that when I click on this area, the construction line gets ignored because it's not an actual line. However, over here, where the entire circle is solid, this is considered a separate area, and it does not get selected. So I can also, like, set this to construction line. And if I click on now, I can select the entire tower. And I can do that too. Still understand why that's here. If I do that, that just breaks it. Yeah. Yeah. So, and yeah, so then another use for a construction line would be, say, I don't want this. I'm trying to create 5 inches by 5 inches. That sounds good. So say I want to create a circle. I want it to be, let's go with a 3-inch circle. And I want to have a smaller circle at each point. So I don't actually need this circle. I don't need this, like, box I drew. All I need is these smaller circles. So, like, I can have circle here, circle here, circle here, circle here, maybe one there. And I can set these to be, let's go 1 inch. That sounds good. I didn't actually set to 1 inch. You have to make sure to press enter, not just immediately click off, by the way. Good thing to keep in mind. All right, so I have my plate with all the circles I need, but yeah, I don't need the inner circle. It needs just, yeah, the larger circle or the box. It adds a bunch of needless complexity. So I can just press Q to turn that into a construction line, do the same for this, 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 this. They're all construction lines now. So when I go to select my drawing, it's just the plate itself, the like larger circle and the shape I use to help me create the circles are gone. It's not a part of the actual geometry as much. But now I have showed you this way where I use a like circle and just draw the points I need. But what if I wanted this plate to have like 6 holes around the center instead of just 4? Like, it's a lot harder to say like, oh, I need this to go off here at exactly this angle, go there. It's just kind of pointless. It's needlessly hard. So we can get rid of all of that. Apparently hold on. Where was it? There. Found it? No. Wait. All right. I'm just gonna redraw this because I don't feel like trying to find the origin again because I deleted a constraint by accident. All right, so plate's 5 inches by 5 inches. So I want my plate to have a bunch of 1-inch holes, 1 in the center, and then 6 around the outside. I could just get creative with like circles and lines, but alternatively, I could create a polygon. In this case, we probably want to use a circumscribed polygon, I think. Yeah, the one where it's inside the circle. So I want this. I probably want the circles to be on the horizontal line. So I'll make sure when I'm creating the polygon, I set at least one of the corners. In this case, since this is a 6-sided shape, I get to have 2 of the corners on it. But I put the corner on the horizontal line. It automatically assumes, oh yeah, you don't want that rotated probably, so I'll just assume that you mean only yeah, so that point is stuck to that line. But now we haven't defined how many sides we actually want it to have yet. This is just like, oh, here's a point at a hexagon. But if you like drag the mouse pointer back and forth, you can kind of see, oh, I can create like any shape I want. It's like up to 32. Oh no, if I keep moving it 36, down to 3. Oh, it doesn't keep going on to my other monitor. That's sad. Yeah, so for now, I just want 6. If I wanted like 4, and I was trying to do the example from earlier, I could just do 4. But yeah, let's go. Actually, no, 6 is probably better for space. Yeah, so we have that there. It creates a dimension like, yeah, this has 6 sides, but it doesn't say like how large we want it to be. Like, this could be any shape. However, we can't rotate it, which is a good thing. Yeah, so how far out do we want this to be? Let's go with 3 inches. So now this is defined. We probably still want to set our hexagon as construction because we don't want that to show up in the final model. And now we can just start creating circles. put a bunch of these around here. I created that one slightly off. Oh yeah, so try to make sure like when you're creating a circle and you want to be on a point, make sure you're actually on the point. So you can create it like here by accident, and like it looks pretty much fine, but I can like drag this circle wherever I want because I didn't click on the point where this circle, all I could do is like change the size. I can't like just move it anywhere. So just delete that. So we're gonna keep drawing circles. Okay, I have all my circles. We're gonna dimension all of them. This one at 1 inch. This one at 1 inch. This one at 1 inch. Oh, that was pretty close already. That one. That one. That one. All right. Now, as you can see, I have the plate I was trying to make. It has 1 hole in the middle, 6 around the outside. That's about done. And also, coincidentally, it looks like our time is almost up. So, yeah, I think we have a quiz somewhere, or unless anyone has any questions they want to ask.
Yeah, I'd rather get the questions in over that quiz. We can do that next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions, those questions are far more important than the quiz. So please let us know if there's anything you want to know.
Nope, we have like another
We're here to help you.
Yeah, we have another 3 minutes for questions. So feel free to ask.
Yeah.
Any questions, or is everyone pretty on board?
Yeah, I'd like to ask if we make a document under the team, when we save the document, will it be there for everyone that's on the team to see? Like kind of like
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if I go back to the Onshape home, or oh, apparently I didn't share it with it. Okay, so I forgot. I have to share it with the team first. Which I should probably do to make sure that you guys can see my little example document. Can edit. Let's set it in view. All right. So now you can see it. So yeah, if you make something as part of the class, please share it with the team. Yeah, apparently just create doesn't automatically put it on the team. And yeah, so if it's shared with the team, anyone on the team can see it. Speaking of which, if there's anyone not on the team, please email or please send a message to Amy. Or that person in chat. Is she still here? Oh no, she left. Never mind. Ignore that. Send it to me. I'll send your email to her. But yeah. So yeah, please let us know if you're not on the team. How do I group objects that intersect together? We'll work on that later.
Yeah, that's getting a little bit.
This class is about over for now. Yeah, so that'll be like next class, or maybe the class after that. But for now, back to answering the question. Yeah, so if a document is shared with the team, anyone on the team can see it. It's also possible to share it as can edit or can view. In this case, you'll notice that I put it as can view. If you want someone to edit it, you can set it as can edit. That makes it a bit easier to like work with someone else on something. So if like two people are trying to make a a smart cat feeder or something, and they're trying to make it like where like one person is working on one part and then they have to go, so the other person starts to work on that. You would probably want it as can edit them. Well, that's actually probably fairly obvious. I probably don't. But yeah, so I think I've answered your question. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Preferably stuff we went over today that was just confusing or you don't understand it, because it's possible there's someone else who also doesn't understand, and we want to help everyone that we can.
Yep, and just for future reference, if you decide you want to go off on your own and do anything, if you're not sharing it with the class, you can go under the My Onshape. That will keep all of your documents private.
All right, so if no one else has any questions, I guess we'll go on to the quiz. All right, so we have a small quiz here. Which of these tools up top is the trim tool? Does anyone know what it is? All right. Looks like everyone says B. You would be correct. It is in fact B. All right. So, what are some practical uses for CAD? Designing robots. That's a pretty good one, I must say. That's mostly what I use it for. Designing things for a company. That's pretty good. Art design. Yep. Construction, making precise parts. Yeah, these are all pretty good. Design 2D and 3D items, 3D printing, SketchUp parts for robots. Yep, I'd say these are all pretty good practical uses for CADs, or for CAD. So how many planes are available for sketches? Three, okay. Yep, this would be correct. So now, front, right, and top, that's a pretty good answer right there. So then the fourth question, what are the two types of rectangle? Center point, quarter point, yep, this is good. So then what is the shortcut for the dimension tool? Looks like we're gonna answers for both questions now. Yeah, D, that is correct. D is in fact the shortcut for the dimension tool. With that, I think that's about everything we have for this session. Yeah, no, they haven't started working on anything else. So Thank you. So if anyone else has any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, you are free to leave.
Thank you for attending. It's